We're having this conversation during Men's Mental Health Week, but for me, and I'm sure you're all with me on this, probably one that needs to happen all year round. And there's no better way to kick off a conversation on men's mental health than talking to the lovely Sophie Wardell from Higgs LLP and the legends, the effervescent, the beautiful, the impactful Kev Lee from the Black Country Blokes. How is everyone? Everyone all right?
Really good. Thanks, PJ. Really, really good.
Cool. So let's kick off with the lads.
My name's Kev Dillon. I run the Lions ABC, which is downstairs from this lovely studio. I've been involved in boxing all of my life. My dad was a GB coach for many years, worked with Amir Khan, Anthony Joshua, Nicola Adams, all these big names through boxing. But he started off as an amateur boxing coach at Worley ABC. And all I've ever known is boxing. Unfortunately, I couldn't box. I lost my eyesight to viral meningitis when I was 3 years old. I had meningitis and it attacked my optic nerve. It created something called optic neurosis. If you can think of a wire, like the plug socket's fine, the TV's fine, but it ate away at the plastic, so the messages get lost. If it had been dealt with properly at the time, I'd have had my eyesight back at 6, but unfortunately, it was the 80s, was overlooked, and my eyesight never come back. Going to mainstream school was difficult. I had a support teacher, and I was learned how to touch type, but I was graced by great parents, great big brother, great grandparents, who just encouraged me to try, and if I failed, it's all right to fail. My dad always said, be careful, you'll fall over. And I turned to him as a young man and went, but don't worry, Daddy, I'll get back up. And that's an ethos I've lived with all my life. You know you're different, but I was determined to be the best out there. And I was ducking and diving and learned how to be a man. And then when I couldn't compete in boxing, it broke my heart. So I went to being a naughty young man and finding out what you shouldn't do. But it was all learning. And then it formed of depression. I started having anxiety and all this. What happens is when you're a young man, you feel broken. You feel broken because you're different. What woman will ever love me? Will I ever have a child? Will I ever be successful? Then older I've got, I realised everyone was broken. Some people are tall, some people are short, some people are fat. We're all broken, but we all disguise it differently. And that allowed me to get better. I'm now happily married. I've got a young daughter, and you can if you try hard enough. And then we started up this beautiful thing called the Black Country Blokes 6 years ago. And it all started off with men's mental health to get us blokes talking, showing just because you're a boxer doesn't mean you can't have a wobble. And then I invited Leon, my old pal, and I didn't realise, we've known each other for the best part of 30 years. I didn't realise at the time he was having a wobble. So over to Lee.
I think you've explained it all. My journey is not too dissimilar in terms of disability. I have 3 kids. My youngest daughter is severely disabled, and that's brought on many, many challenges. And I'm also a business owner, and there's a lot of juggling going on in between doing all that. And it does affect your mental health. But yeah, as Kev said, one of the reasons when Kev invited me to be part of the Black Country Blokes, one of the reasons I actually stayed on and agreed to it was because of my son. So my son is my middle child, and I didn't want him to get to the ages that I got to and struggled and not being able to talk. So I had to show him the way, really, that look, you can go out there and talk. Whether he listens is totally up to him. You know, he's a 14-year-old lad, but at least he knows that he can go out there and he can talk to people.
And it's helped us week on, week out, picking up on each other. We're having guests on because when you're going through the fog, you can't see the end result. And you go to the doctors and go, oh, you've lost your eyesight, or you're poorly, you're never going to work again. And there's no help. There is help, but it's not offered. You have to fight for help. So we've had other charities and like-minded individuals to come on and show there's help. Because wouldn't it be great in between Britain's Got Talent if it popped up saying, if you're suffering with your mental health, or if you're suffering with disability, or here's a helpline. But unfortunately, you have to fight tooth and nail to find the help. But I assure you, help is out there. You've just got to look for it.
Yeah. Well, you're certainly doing so much in that space, helping men support one another, open up, all those conversations. I've just found that since losing mum, just that conversation is the start of intervention, and everything else that follows from that really, takes you on that journey that you didn't even know you needed at times. Sophie, I know you bring, I suppose, today an incredible perspective, that's the right word, on workplace wellbeing. Tell me a little bit more about the stuff that you're doing at Higgs.
So I guess just by way of introduction, I'm Sophie Wardell, and I'm the people director at Higgs. And people often say to me, "Oh, what's a people director? Like, don't you just mean HR?" And I always say, "Well, would you prefer to be thought of as a person, or would you prefer to be thought of as a resource?" And so I use the term people director. My role is very broad. Um, my particular areas of interest are around well-being and inclusion, and I have a really strong view that work should be something that people get a lot from, and men in particular, a lot of their sense of identity comes from the work that they do. I work in the legal sector. I've worked in the legal sector for 15 years, and most recently I'm working at Higgs LLP. And the legal sector is inherently a very stressful environment, and you're dealing with people who have a lot of perfectionist tendencies. I did some research recently, and in 2024, 241 people in the legal sector died by suicide. 241 people too many. And I strongly feel that work shouldn't make people unwell, and that well-being shouldn't be something that is separate from performance. I think that having conversations and allowing people to recognize and discuss how they are feeling is a perfectly acceptable thing to do at work. And something that you said, PJ, that I think is really key, about from the point at which that you started talking, it surfaced a lot of stuff. It was probably hard at first, but then it becomes easier. But the thing I've learned really acutely, probably in the last 2 years, and being the mother of two boys as well, is actually a lot of the time men don't want to talk. And women do. Women really gain a lot from socializing their problems or their worries or their concerns. And a lot of men may not choose that as an avenue for them. And I had a conversation with someone who's very close to me recently who said to me, just because I'm not crying, it doesn't mean that I'm not sad. You know, I really struggled during the pandemic. It was hideous to be so isolated. I'd recently moved from a city. I was living suddenly in a village, suddenly without any support structures, with a very, very young family at that time. And that sense of loneliness was so profound. And yeah, sure, I could have a conversation with somebody, but just physically being around people was obviously a challenge during the lockdowns. And it got me to thinking about male loneliness. And there's a statistic that I find truly sad, that 1 in 5 men have no close friends. That's compared with women. Women, it's something like 1 in 10, but 1 in 5 men have no close friends. And what that does is it means that there's a heightening of male loneliness, and there is this sense that a lot of people take comfort through social media, through connecting with people online, and actually it increases their lack of confidence to be able to have a conversation with somebody.
And we find this when we do group sessions and things like that in the past, that, yeah, just being in the room and listening to other people's experiences, and understanding that they are going through something similar to yourself. And you can work it out in your head there. And you can also obviously pick up tips and tricks to help you get through. So I think that's important to remember with men, that you don't have to actually talk. You can just listen, you can be around it, you can gain valuable information. And I think that's the key to our podcast, to be quite honest, because a lot of people are not obviously talking back to us when we are discussing.
Well, there's this slogan that's going around, end the silence. But is it they're silent, or is it reading the silence, or is it reading the subtle signs that they want to talk? Because so many people, they say men don't talk, but men do often talk. But it's either in language that the person doesn't want to hear, and when they feel like they haven't been heard, they don't talk. If you keep knocking on the door and no one answers, eventually you stop knocking. So what we did, like through lockdown, like my boxing club shut down, we found a legal loophole with Tough Enough to Care, so we could have support groups up here, upstairs, talking, and then it served its purpose. But I thought we can do something different here. So we open up every day, Mondays to Friday, 10:30 to 11:30, where people can come and train, but they know they can talk to me about anything. And before you know it, we're talking about fatherhood. And I'll say, oh, the baby's kept me up all night. And I talk about when I had my daughter. I said, I felt so guilty that I didn't sob when I had my baby. But by having a conversation, you realise you're not alone. Strength comes when we're together. And when we were all growing up, we had communities, we had the pub, but we're isolated now. We sit there with our own thoughts, and the best friend of any mental health is loneliness. So if we can have like-minded souls, and we can start off by talking about boxing or netball, and before you know it, an organic conversation creeps in, because I know this person is on my wavelength, and this person is not judgmental. This person has been on the same journey, but he's been on one blooming similar.
It resonates with me already, mate. And that's that power of those communities that you're creating, and the support that people like Sophie is giving back into their workplace. Because my experience was very much like, I've always been an overthinker, a bit of an anxious person anyway. Growing up, we all have those anxieties, I suppose. Kev, you mentioned about, once you get to realize that everyone is a bit different, it's probably that comes through age, experience, whatever it might be. But I struggled with that growing up. Are my legs too short? Is my bum too big? Blah, blah, blah. I was massively conscious about the way I looked and how I sounded and all this. My brain just went into overload. And I was already experiencing what I now know is sort of like anticipatory grief. Like from a very early age, I was so desperate not to lose mum. Didn't have any grandparents, so I didn't experience that natural sort of first sort of taste, I suppose, for want of a better word, of grief and loss. So the first hit I've had is mum, my first best mate, the first person that probably really understood me. So that was just an absolute whack. I didn't know how to start those conversations or what they looked like. I soon realised that they were very much side to side rather than face to face. They were sitting in the mud or walking alongside or being in a car journey with someone that's gone through the same things as me. And I was lucky, if that's the right word, that my two best mates, so the three best mates growing up, all lost their mums within 4 months. We were all sitting in the mud together talking about similar things, which then, as you said, Kev, leads into other organic chats that aren't necessarily about loss and grief, but are about men and moving. For me, that movement had to be around, I felt like I had this new identity. I felt like it was version 2 of me. I am struggling now with who I am, because I'm not PJ with a mum anymore.
Well, I mean, thank you for saying that, PJ, because that's a really brave thing to admit as well. And I think that when you lose a parent or a grandparent or someone who's had a significant impact on your life, a part of you goes with them. And I know that sounds strange. And even if it's just the child you who thinks back and thinks, I wish I'd done something differently. So there's a weird exchange that happens, and you lose part of you, but you always have them with you as well. And I think when you start to talk about grief, and you realize what a heavy weight it puts on you, and then you see other people with that heavy weight, it gives you two things. It gives you other people that will help hold it alongside, and it also, in a really peculiar way, gives you a sense of belonging. Kev, when you spoke about becoming a father, and you know how people talk about it like you're in a club and you join, we're all part of this club and we've had babies. The same thing actually happens when you lose someone. You join a club that you never wanted to join. And knowing that there are other people in that club is extremely powerful. If I take it from a workplace perspective, when people talk to me about well-being and inclusion and all of those things, and I have to say some of those words are done to death. Like it's just psychological safety, all of these things. I understand that it's helpful to have language that is a vehicle to express an idea. But when we talk about work and identity and waking up in the morning and feeling good, people don't go to work with this mindset of, oh, what's in it for me? I get paid, I get a job title, I get this. They're actually going to work. And the question that most people are asking is, do I belong here? Like, is this a place where I feel like I belong and am valued? And that will come through the culture and the relationships and the way that people influence. And in the settings that you've created, Lee and Kev, you've created another environment outside of work where people ask that question, do I belong here? And it's what we want from our communities. It's what we want from the tribes that we create. And just going back to your point, PJ, losing someone does change you. Divorce changes you. Having a child changes you. All of those things, and they're real milestone occurrences that we don't talk about enough, or we don't signpost people to other people that are going through the same thing, where perhaps they don't want to talk about it as well.
Well, this last 12 months, there's a few stories. I mean, just before Christmas, I had a lad who boxed for me for many years. He was a lovely kid, got referred to us for being expelled at school. He was a naughty little boy. Turned his life around, boxed, coached for me. Then he left me, got involved in the drug trade, went to jail. And he come back out and he says, Kev, you saved my life once. Can you save it again? I went, of course I will. Got him on the straight and narrow, become a coach for me. He said, when I was in jail, Kev, he goes, don't laugh at me. But I found God. I went, why on earth would I laugh at you, Ash? He goes, it's made me a better man. I encouraged him. He become a minister, opened up his own church. And he said, if it wasn't for the love of the Lord, the love of the Lions, I couldn't have accepted the love of the Lord. He was my greatest gold medal. Went off, did all this. Fortunately, his marriage fell apart. Once again, come up here and says, Kev, I'm back on drugs. Can you save me? Tried my best, phoned up all the helplines. 4 weeks later, he died. He got back onto bad stuff and he passed away. I was so angry because I wasn't allowed to save Ash. So I grieved for him, had to do his eulogy, and I loved him like my brother. I was so angry at the system because he was alive that could have been saved. Then in August, I come back from my holiday, and my brother, at 51, had a heart attack, died. And my big brother was my hero because he taught me so much. My brother loved me longer than I loved him. He knew me when I was in my mummy's tummy. He saw me grow up and he taught me how to duck, how to dive, how to get out of trouble. If we were in trouble, how to get out of it. And when I lost him, he was my rock. He was my rock. But when I lost Rich, it hurt and it still hurts. Now it's early doors. He went out with a heart attack. I believe in my Kevism, my belief. He either woke up by his dog licking his face or his old pal kicking him in his head. But I believe he was met with love. I could accept Rich dying. Whereas angry with Ash. And grief is very personal, and it can be personal to how we lose people at that time. And grief changes from person to person. I picked this up from a movie. It's called The Boy Called Christmas. It's a great movie. Watch it at Christmas. There's a lovely scene. Grief is the price that we pay for loving someone. There's a price we pay over and over for the love they gave us. And it should hurt when we lose someone because we loved them so blooming much. But be thankful the time that we were so honoured and privileged to have with that person.
Wow, thanks for sharing that, mate. I'm going to struggle with stuff like that. I'm struggling at Christmas, to be fair. I've seen all the adverts starting and this was my special time. My mum was basically Christmas. And it does hit you at different times, doesn't it? This grief. Someone described it yesterday as tsunami. You know, you literally wake up one morning, you think, actually, this is pretty easy to deal with. What's this all about? I'm feeling completely fine. And then all of a sudden, this ninja grief just pops up behind you and absolutely smashes you on in the solar plexus.
As I say, let it wash over you, but please don't let it drown you. Let the emotions flood over you, but don't let it take you under.
I agree. But the interesting thing, and just on the subject of grief and on the subject of tears, because I think some people are more susceptible to crying than other people. I'm a big crier, PJ. I know we've talked about that before.
I'm an emotional peach, mate.
I always say my emotions are just very quick. But I don't think there's so I understand. I don't think there's another creature in the sort of animal kingdom that cries than humans do. And often I think that we hold back the release of crying because we think it signals like a loss of control. And when you look at the kind of archetype of a leader, it's always someone who's in control and they're really consistent and they're really predictable and they're really dependable. And that archetype is often created around a man. That's just a true fact. And I think that often that holding it back and not allowing the tears to come, the ugly crying to come, the snot bubbles to come, actually can be detrimental. Obviously, you need to feel like you're in an environment where you want to be that way, and it wouldn't be much good if you just walked around with everybody like sobbing their heart out. Or maybe that would be really, really cathartic, and maybe we should have that as like an offsite or something.
But it's emptying the valve, isn't it? Releasing the valve.
It's like blowing up a balloon, and at some point it'll just go bang. And it's a kind of a known thing that men are less likely to cry. Not all men, but just generally men don't. But actually, there's so much release that comes from it. You're also giving permission to your sons or your daughters or what have you to express their emotion as well. And it's a cue that says to somebody in a very obvious way, I'm actually not okay. And it actually happens at work quite a lot, where I'm having a conversation with someone, but particularly a man, and he might cry in a private conversation with me at work about something that's personal. And the first thing he will do is say, I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing to me? You don't owe me an apology because why are you sorry? You're just upset. You're sad. And that's okay. Just let it out.
I try and explain to the lads, to say, if we think of it as a bottle of pop and it's shaking, 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 take the pear out of it, let the fizz out. Because if you don't, it's going to come out when you don't want it to. It's going to burst at work. It's going to burst in the car. It's going to, if I can have that bit of, where have I got to go down to the garden shed? Where have I got to, one of my friends says he cries in the shower because it washes it away. We know our time. But I think sometimes when it's taken out of our hands and it becomes a public display, as you said, we feel embarrassed. We shouldn't. But that's the thing is, sorry. And you're thinking, it's a human reaction to pain.
But it isn't just crying, is it? And there are other side effects to grief, to loss, to mental health that I think people don't talk about, or people don't reference. Panic attacks being one of them. Feelings of being really, really angry, and then the one that I think I have often seen as well is just feelings of absolute nothing. Like total indifference, but like indifference to the things you used to enjoy, indifference to the people that you really love, like almost like shutting them out, but just feeling nothing, like that numbness. And it can be so difficult because it's so different for people. And also it doesn't have to be directly connected to the thing that has happened. It could be the first Christmas, the first birthday. It could just be that song I haven't heard for such a long time, the perfume that I smelt that just caught me off guard. It's like every part of your brain firing at once.
Have you ever experienced panic attacks, you guys?
I have, mate. Yeah, Sophie, you do as well, don't you, Soph? I think
From time to time, yeah.
I haven't, mate. They're horrendous, aren't they, mate? I thought I'd had panic attacks before, and the doctor used to say as a kid growing up I did, just because I was overstimulated or whatever. Mate, I used to worry about the pain of giving birth. I've never had a womb. You know, I used to literally overthink the most bizarre things. But recently, mate, they present themselves as something completely different. Like I'm completely debilitated. I'm on the floor. And the last one was actually from me cutting cucumber. I was just slicing cucumber, and my brain has obviously gone back to a moment where my mum was teaching me how to prepare a salad. And I was on the floor just writhing around. The question, I suppose, to both of you, Kev and Lee, you know, finding time for this grief, right? And recently I was advised to actually almost schedule time for it to a point, whether that be in the shower and it washes away, whether it be an hour where you listen to songs, you go to the resting place, whatever it might be. I'm absolutely petrified of going back to mum's resting place. I can't deal with that at the moment. I really struggle with that. But when they do start coming, your sadness, the issues, how do you deal with them? What's your first thought to comfort yourself? What is it? Because I'd love to know, because I need as much advice as possible.
I think it's like what Kev said, really. You have to be in that moment and don't let it drown you, but be in it. And the problem is with a lot of that, you try and stop it. And I think that's one of the worst things you can do with it, really. Just even if you're in a situation like we're in now, if you started feeling that, take yourself away. Don't be afraid to go, actually, I just need 5 minutes over there, you know, away from the situation. And just let it be. We try and fight everything.
Are you doing more of anything that helps you, Lee? Walking, exercising?
Yes, without doubt, exercising is a big one for me. I just have to watch that I don't take it too far. As being an ex-boxer, I can get in a mindset where I feel great and it's good for me and it's working, but then I'll overdo that. I'll give you an instance. In May, I had to run 5K every day to raise money for the disability, the charity that my daughter's got, the disability. And I felt great after that. It was brilliant. Got up in the morning, I had the sun on my face, I did my run, I come back and I felt amazing. I wanted to carry it on. So what I did is I brought a weighted vest and I started walking every single day, 5K with this weighted vest on. But then that wasn't enough. So then I started doing 100 press ups and 100 sit ups every day. Then that wasn't enough. So I started weightlifting on the night. And then before I know it, I'm absolutely exhausted and I completely knocked myself out. So it's the same principle. It's you've got to know when to do things, when to stop, and when to carry on. But yeah, exercise is definitely a big one. But I do even now. I find it hard to relax because everything that I do that potentially relaxes me and slows my mind, like exercise, but it's physical. There's nothing I really do that is not physical and slows my mind down.
I think sometimes when I commit myself to this new routine that I'm trying to find, I actually sometimes forget what I'm trying to find. I'm in a position now where I must admit, I feel almost burnt out because I'm doing so many things to distract myself from the reality. And I know
that's
that's
what I
not
was trying to
sustainable.
explain. You do that, and even now, like I ride motorbikes, and I love that. It takes my mind off things, but it's still a physical. You're still moving around a big heavy motorbike, so it's not necessarily relaxing your body. It might relax your mind, but your body's still working. And I think I'm still looking myself. What do I do that relaxes my mind and my body at the same time?
Maybe a yoga session down the gym.
That's it.
Put your legs behind your head. See what you get. When I lost Rich, it was very sudden because I run this place. I went, I can't be around people because I've lost my big brother. So, Kev, when's my Lee sparring? I could not give a monkey about your Lee at the moment. And it's not his fault. He's an idiot. But I can't be around him now because I'm going to respond to him. And it's not his fault. So I had to lock myself away. If you phone me, then I can see Lee Cadman, answer it. PJ, answer it. Jeff, don't answer it. So I had to parry my court because I knew if I was around those people, I might talk to them reactively because I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm like a wounded dog who wants to bite someone. So don't put yourself in that situation. It's knowing your battles. Pick your fights, don't let your fights pick you. And I've learned that older I've got. And I remember that. So sometimes you know you better than anyone else. Go at your pace because grief is different for everyone.
Yeah,
Can I ask you,
100%.
DJ, before when you was making your salad and cutting your cucumber, did you have feelings of that coming on, or was it sudden?
Great question, mate. I'm getting a little bit of counselling here and there. And one of them was about this sort of knowing when you're going to get into this space and almost pre-comforting yourself, whether it be wrapping yourself up in a blanket or something. So I think it was, mate. I think actually, Lee, mate, I think it was when I'm starting to get tired and I'm sort of running out of steam. And whether that's my body looking for a hug or a call, it's usually the time I call mum as well. I used to call mum literally on the way home from work in the car, this body memory thing. But why'd you ask? Is that something that happens to you, mate?
Yeah, just because of that, I always know now. I don't suffer from panic attacks, but I do go into depression. I do go into that. And previously, when I was younger, I didn't recognise the signs that was happening. My shoulders are really tight, or my eyes are hurting, or I've been clenching my teeth, or I know then that I need to do something basically. And it might be that slow down, you're doing too much. Because the last 3 weeks, just for my daughter alone, I've done 20 different types of hospital appointments or EHCPs or this, and that's as well as running my own business. So I know it's building up. It's building up. I need to, even if it's take a day off, do something, get out on my bike, work on my bike, do something that clears my mind a bit.
So I listened to what you do, Lee, and you are so busy. Like, you're so active in doing and taking on more things, and some of it you can't avoid because it's to do with your daughter, and it's something that is really noticeable. And I don't think this is specifically men, but I do see it in men. Is I'm going to do something really practical. I'm going to do something really helpful, and then I'll take that and I'll just say yes to all of these things. It's like a neutralizing effect. And I suppose what strikes me is in knowing that and thinking back to kind of our communities, there is an ever increasing trend of male unemployment manufacturing isn't what it was, and there are just these big gaps where there are huge groups of men who don't think they'll ever get a job again, and they're probably only in their late 40s, and what a massive impact that has, because I know work and identity obviously going hand in hand, but one of the largest sort of groups of people that are falling into unemployment, where there's a real difference between male and female, is like from graduates. There's so many more male graduates that are coming out of university and not able to find work. And then you've got the people that fall into the not in education, employment or training, described as the NEETs, where again, there's this big gap. You're more likely to be a NEET if you are male than you are if you're a female. And you must see that coming through into the Black Country Blokes, into the Lions, of just how much that is having an impact as well.
But if you think, like, we just had lockdown 5 years ago, and we all had a taste for it. Most of us were on furlough or closed down. But when we meet each other in the pub, you go, "How been you, mate? My name's Kev, I run a boxing club. What's your name? Lee, I run a..." We identify by what we do. And when I'm no longer running a boxing club, when I'm no longer go, "Who am I? What am I?" And that's, well, what am? Where do I fit in now? Am I a stay-at-home daddy? Am I? And it's, well, where do I fit in? If I can't provide for my family, am I a failure? And then but we don't identify by, I don't care if I like a laugh, or I'm a very kind bloke, or I'm a bit of a so-and-so. We identify what we do. And I think when we haven't got a hole that the peg fits in, we're lost. And I think what you said, when we feel hopeless, and even worse, worthless, but we're not. I always see hope. See hope as hope's not died, it's hibernated. Because all it needs is a tiny little bit of an ember. You blow on that ember and the fire's alive again. So always hold on to hope. This too shall pass. Unfortunately, the good times pass. But the good thing is, the bad times pass. And no matter what you've been through, you have survived your worst day. How do I know? Because you're still blooming here. And we don't give ourselves enough credit for that, realising that I survived it. And what that has given me is a superpower called resilience. Because now I know I've been up that mountain, come back down that mountain. So the next mountain that comes, well, I did it last time, so let's give it another go.
You know what? I've been listening to a song, Jerry Cinnamon, and he's got a song called Dark Days, and it's, I won't sing it, but it's, it basically explains this absolute horrible day. But it says these are the best days of our lives, because you will live in them, at least. We are around, we are experiencing this beautiful thing that is life. It just looks differently to us at the moment.
A lot of time, we're not living life. We're reacting to life. We haven't had like an itinerary saying, by the way, tomorrow you're going to run out of milk. Your cat's going to get run over. Your missus is going to run away with the milkman. Flipping heck, we've run out of milk. I love my cat. What do you mean to run away with the milkman? And you say things and you do things because you're reacting to it. The great thing about hindsight, I've gone, well, what I should have done was get more milk, lock the cat in the door and treat the missus better. But we're not. But what we've got to do then is learn from it, so I do better this afternoon and tomorrow.
And it's also important to remember that there's days where you do truly have a bad day. I've sat in a hospital room with my wife, my daughter's tubes all over, the doctor telling me that get the family around, she's not going to make this. That's a real bad day. But what it made me realise is all the little things now that go on, the people who cut you up, the cat that does run out the door, that's not a bad day. That is just part of life. That is realising. So don't let it spoil the rest of your day. It happened. It is what it is. Get the cat back in, sort the problem.
I'm a Kevist. I always say that I'm a Kevist. I believe in a higher power, and I'm clever enough to realise I don't know everything, but I believe in something. And I believe that our kid's still with us. You know what I mean? And I do believe it. I said when he passed, I believe that someone was there, wherever it is, to meet him. My brother said, you and Dad have got a legacy. The club, which was always trying to, like, he lived in Thailand for many years, made a bob or two, and he built like this thing for the orphans so they could play sport. And when he died, I thought, my brother's legacy was the life he led. the lessons he taught me. If we can give love forwards and we can give knowledge forwards, that's the only key to eradicating ignorance. When I can ask a question and listen to the blooming answer. And my brother was this brave soul that travelled since he was 17 to Greece, Canada, India, Australia, then settled in Thailand for 20 years. And I learned a lot from Rich. He was a very selfish bugger with some stuff, but he was never selfish with his love. And isn't that the greatest gifts we can give anyone? Love,
Yeah.
kindness, and knowledge.
The legacy piece, bizarrely, I was listening to the comedian Jimmy Carr, and he said, we think about the afterlife a lot, what it might look like and feel like to us. But he feels the afterlife is, so mum's afterlife is us now, representing, remembering, acknowledging, whatever it might be. And I'm probably more a Kevist because I don't know. I had faith. I was a Catholic boy. I had faith. We went to church, all that sort of stuff. I think mum had faith still when I don't think she knew she was dying. But I think if she did, she'd know where she was going. And I'm struggling with my faith, if I'm completely honest. I do want to go back to church, but I do believe that she's with me. I feel her in the sea. I feel her in the air. I feel her all at the times when, I need to feel her. You look at me, Lee and Kev, right? And we're not excluding ladies, obviously. We're all going on this journey. We're up, down, left, right, and centre. And we come back to work. What does that look like for an employer? It must be quite a challenge, right? Because we're all different now.
So my very strong perspective is that people will come back when they are ready. They will come back when they need to. And I've seen people come back, a parent passes away, say on a Friday, and they come back in on a Monday because that sense of busyness that we were talking about, that's the thing that keeps them going. And actually, if you were to, you can't force someone not to come in, but actually they're just the prospect of being at home is worse. I think the key thing is ensuring that they feel comfortable that that they share with you how they would want that to be communicated to other people. And I always try to seek permission. Is it okay if I tell people what has happened and what's going on? Do you want people to talk to you about it or not? It's just about having that free-flowing conversation. The other thing I'd say is, and I always find this really difficult, other people's well-being is not just the job of HR, right? It is the responsibility of everybody in an organization or in a community. Like it very often gets kind of passed down the tracks to the tea and sympathy department, and then you get a knock at the door saying, well, you know how to do it, you're trained. And there are very few people. There might be some people in HR that have done mental health first aid training or similar, that like that people team might have people who are particularly adept, but generally you'll just have people who are naturally very compassionate, naturally quite empathetic, I hope, and they're happy to come alongside you. But what you really care about is your manager, like the person that knows you best, hopefully. And I think you need to be ensuring that you equip managers to feel comfortable with what they're saying. But what I often say to people is, just be as human as possible. Like if you say nothing, that is worse. If you notice just a slight change, maybe they're not shaving as much, maybe they're not talking as much, maybe there's just like something you can't even put your finger on, just ask the question. Just genuinely be nosy, be a pain, be a nuisance, ask the question, because it just, are you okay? 3 words, you will regret not saying it.
It might have saved his life or her life. We don't ask the question because we're petrified about what's going to come back. But for that feeling of uncomfort, you might have just saved that person's life.
But you think you'll get it wrong. And I will say, and this has happened to me on more occasions than I care to think of, where I have asked that question and the response has been, yeah, maybe, is don't be the only person that goes away with that information. Don't be alone with that knowledge. It isn't for you to fix it, the fact that they've shared it. Then go and seek the right support, ensure that somebody else can appropriately signpost them to where they need to be signposted.
I've got a lived experience there, and I suppose I've got to thank Kev Lee for this. I interviewed Kev and the Black Country Blokes on radio probably 6 months ago, certainly after I'd lost mum. And whilst I was having the conversation with Kev, I've told Kevin Lee before we started this, but my wife sent me a WhatsApp while I was interviewing him, and she said, oh, these guys sound amazing. Be more like Kev. That was the hashtag, right? And so I looked at what these lads were doing, and I saw a few things on Facebook and that, and there was a suicide reference. And off the back of that, I asked myself whether I was suicidal. Genuinely went upstairs, sat there, and spent a lot of time on it and with it. And I've soon realised, with asking other people similar things, what should I be looking out for?
We've had to phone up the crisis numbers several times for different people. And I say it's like when you're boxing, when your coach throws in the towel, you effing who are you to... But afterwards, when he's got back to the change room or back home and going, you've just saved my life. And that's the same with the crisis number. As he's saying, it's best to lose a friend, he falls out with you, than to lose a friend and you've got to turn up at his service. And 9 out of 10, when they've had to go into bushy fields, or it could be 6 months, 6 years, they go, you know what, kid, you saved my life then. I didn't realise how poorly I was. Because sometimes when you're lost in the maze, you don't know how far you're in the maze. So that's why you need that love to give you a beacon so you can find your way back out of it. Because often when we're there, we're lost in the madness. And I always say that depression's like a dark room. It's okay if you pop in, pop out. Longer you're in there, you get lost in there. So that's when, we've got to look out for one another and give them a beacon to aim for.
Do you have to accept that we're in pain and struggling to get through this, and to make sure we don't stay in that dark room as long as we could?
I think you definitely have to accept it, and you have to certainly find your way through it. But in truth, I don't wake up in the morning and consciously think about it. To be quite honest, the one thing about what's happened with my daughter is it's made me realise that, as I said earlier, that most things aren't important. So I let go of a lot of stuff really easily now. Previous to that, definitely, I'd definitely get there, and I'd probably wallow in it a bit too much. And like I said earlier, I'd stub my toe on the table, and I'd feel like the world was against me. That now it's none of it is important. An example: I was very much work driven, still am now. Really, really work driven. And once my first was born, that hyped up. It hyped up again when my second was born, and then once my third was born, it was at its maximum level. And then I was reading stuff like, well, to bring up a disabled daughter, you need or a disabled child, you need an extra £1,000 a month. So then I'm working constantly, literally working constantly. And then obviously lockdown come along, and we went on the shielding list. And I had an amazing lockdown, really good, because it stopped me. It slowed me down. It stopped me. I just started my business, and my business is actually disability equipment sales. And everyone was shielding within that business, so I couldn't go out to see. So basically, ground to a halt. I was bringing no money in, nothing at all. But I had the most amazing time. I got to spend time with the family, and it made me realise we'll survive it anyway, and it's not that important. If I lost my business now, would I be upset? Of course I would be. I'd work really hard to be that, but it wouldn't drain me. Certainly wouldn't. I'd just go, okay, then let's start again. Let's do something. Let's go and get a job. It wouldn't have an impact on me now like it would previously. And that's simply because I know I can survive that. I know I can carry on. I've done it. I've been there.
You're playing with that. I say that I always wanted to play with purpose, but now I'm able to play with purpose and perspective, because I used to think success was the watch that I wore, the house that I live in, the car that I drive. And I'd give any of those moments and assets and material things up for a second with my mum. So yeah, I mean, that shift is so powerful. I must admit though, I do let myself down though, because I am quite, I feel like a massive albatross has come off my neck sometimes, when I appreciate that I care less now about the things that I used to be so wound up about. But then when someone does cut me up, I find myself like going back to, and it upsets me that I've slipped back into those moments.
That's just learning, and some things still are going to get on your nerves. It's just it's that's emotion at the time. It's just learning. That's just part of the learning. You're not quite fully along to accept that every single time you're going to be fine. And it's not really that you've got upset in that moment that's the issue. It's whether you let that moment spoil the rest of your day.
And you're human as well. That's just you just still, like for every episode in our life, challenge in our life that we get over it, if the theory was that from everything that we gain perspectives, we'd all end up living to an old age and dying saints. We are just human beings, and we're going to make mistakes, and all of that is fine. I spend a massive part of my work telling people that it's completely okay, that you will make mistakes. It's not about the mistake. It's about what you learn from that thing. It's about that moment of reflection. And I think sometimes we beat ourselves up because we have this absolutely perfect vision of the person we're meant to be. And that can come from like academics, the school that you went to, the sector that you're working in, the role model you aspire to be, the perception of being a man that has been handed to you and said, well, you need to be brave and you're clever and a breadwinner and strong and resilient and never cry. And the thing is, I see this with, as I said, I've got two young boys. Like what was expected of a man is so different now. And we're still trying to work that out. But at the same time as trying to work it out, we're also trying to work out how to avoid this badge of toxic masculinity and what's your role now. And there's a lot of demonizing that happens as well. And the thing is, if you are a man in today's society, you still have a job to do in being a role model to boys growing up in this society. There was a Lost Boys report, and I think it said that boys and young men today, you're more likely to have a smartphone than you are to live with your biological father.
I think for me, I don't know why we worry about trying to be a man. Just try and be yourself and try and be happy. Try and make the people around you happy, the people close. Don't worry about trying to be a man. So I couldn't tell you what being a man is.
Such a wise thing to say. I absolutely love that. But people obsess over it. People obsess over it, don't they? And people become a bit fixated, and it is because there's a lot of really unhelpful language that is out there and expectation.
I suffered with body dysmorphia when I was younger. When I was in my teens, they put me on steroids, trying out my eyes. So I put loads of weight on. So I was a very fat kid. Then I got really into like weightlifting, and I could walk past the mirror 3 times and see someone different each time. I was never happy in my own skin. I was too slim. My arms were too small. And I was very much on my own. I felt like I couldn't talk about it. But now I see a lot of lads who are suffering with it because even the window cleaner on Coronation Street has got 6-packs and perfect eyebrows. And I look and I'm thinking, flipping heck, what world did he's growing up in? And it turns out I'm happier fat than I was slim. You find peace, or you should find peace, or you're blessed if you find peace in yourself. I love Kev Dillon now. For years I didn't like him, but I found peace because the body is the vessel. You know what I mean? Am I my arm? Am I my eyes? Am I my ears? Am I the... It's I am Kev. And that's not as a white heterosexual man. I am Kev. Because if I do lose all my eyesight and I can't coach, I'm still Kev. If my wife leaves me, I'm still Kev. And I think we put too much narrative on what I should be instead of what am I? And then when you do look into yourself, going, well, I'm many things. I'm many things with different people, but I am still Kev. And I should be different at 40s than I was in 30s and 20s. And hopefully, by the grace of God, I'm different in my 50s. There's the same blueprint of Kevin Dillon, but I should mature. I should grow. If someone cut to me wife up, you know, and I say to Kate, a moment of madness could change our life. If he gets out of that car, our life will never be the same. He writes me off, I write him off. Over what? But you see stuff differently because I've got more information than I had in my 30s and my 20s. And it's my obligation to myself and to my family to use that knowledge for the great of Kev and my family.
But also, Kev, like going full circle with that, what I think is, and talking about legacy and everything, you're Kev, but you're Kev with a little bit of Rich now. And PJ, you're PJ, but you're with a little bit more of your mom now, because what you do is you're assimilating, like that classic adage, you will never forget how someone made you feel. That feeling, like, is still with you. That the hugs, the chat.
How lucky are we to have had that?
How lucky are we? That is absolutely it. When you have had that person in your life, they go with you. Like they go with you, and so that blueprint evolves, and energy, or some of the traits that were them, and that, like, it's a basic law of physics that energy can never be destroyed. It just changes, and whatever your spiritual belief, that's a statement of fact. That physical energy that was that person, that energy is still here because it doesn't ever get destroyed.
Kev said it earlier, grief is the price of love. And I'm grateful. I'm getting better at understanding that I'm very lucky to have had the woman I did have in my life, or was able to call my mum. And I do start representing her and bringing into other ways of live in and how I treat other people and all that sort of stuff. What I enjoy about these conversations, actually, it goes back to, I think Lee may have said it or Kev earlier, about how it then develops into other organic conversations that aren't necessarily about grief, loss, and mental health, but bring something new to this new version of yourselves. Um, is I am trying to bring that into the way I now am with my kids. So I am PJ, and I'd like to think I'm a good guy and I'm a good family man. And I've started to really concentrate on what that should look like or could look like. So we've started to implement like breakfast club at home, like, phones down, 10 minutes of just a chat, just little things like that. And this has come from this conversation, this new community that I live in, because you do pick up these little sound bites from other people and which resonate, and it gives you takeaways that you implement into your life very quickly. I'm grateful for having these conversations. I wish I didn't have to, but I'm very grateful for where I am at the moment and people like the Black Country Blokes and you, Sophie, and everyone else that's having these open conversations. I'd love to ask one question, right? If someone is quietly struggling now, and they're listening, what would you want them to hear, Lee?
That they're valuable, that they're loved.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Well, I feel that. I appreciate that. Kev, what about you, Mucker?
The world will be a much sadder place without you in it.
Yeah. Sophie?
Just say you're not alone. You're not alone.
Yeah. We're not alone. I started a conversation the other day. I was asked to facilitate a conversation on mental health. And I think Lee said this at the start or suggested it. We don't always have to talk, There was a couple of people in the conversation that didn't really say much. But actually, the most positive responses I had to that conversation were from the ones that didn't actually speak that much, but they weren't alone in that moment. So I would resonate with all those things that you've just said. We're not alone in this. And, I don't think talking is going to fix everything, but it will show others that they're not alone. And that, I think, personally, from my experience, talking has moved the needle in a number of ways and shapes and forms for me and my friends that kept me alive, if I'm honest. I can even include dogs, but that's a conversation for another day. And you know what? I hope that he was having his face licked, mate. I hope Rich was, because I wouldn't lick in my face. I meet my maker with a bit of love. And I really hope that Rich was experiencing that at his time.
Before we go as well, PJ, stuff like we're doing on the Black Country Blokes, we do our thing. A little saying that is check on those who check on everyone, because often they're checked on by no one. Your old pal who's always phoning you, who's always alive for the party, he also has wobbles. So pick up the phone and just make sure he's okay, because I guarantee he has his dark days. So just make sure they're okay and show them, yes, they love you, but you love them.
Yeah. Bloke goes to the doctor and he says, "Doctor, I'm absolutely all over the place. I'm sad. I'm depressed. I just can't get out of this mood." "Oh, it's all right, mate." He said, "Coco the Clown's in town tonight. Go and see him." He replies, "Doctor, I am Coco the Clown." Okay. How can we get in touch with Black Country Blokes then? How can people reach out to you guys?
Across all the socials, just search Black Country Blokes, or we got blackcountryblokes@gmail.co.uk.
Hurrah a bit, as you'd say in that T-shirt behind. And Sophie, is anything Higgs getting up to anything in the future that people should be aware of?
Well, PJ, obviously, hopefully we're going to be collaborating in January, which we've already talked about. But no, and I'm very active on LinkedIn, as people are probably aware, and I often get messages from people just reaching out for a conversation or a chat, or just to send a message, and I'm always open to that if people want to contact me directly.
If anyone ever wants to pop up the club, do a bit of exercise, or if you want to come up and have a brew, the doors are always open.
Thank you. And thank you so much. Lovely to see you all.
Try a bit.